Tom had always been proud of his home. It was a small, cozy house on the edge of the town, surrounded by tall trees and a quiet street. He had bought it many years ago when he was young. Over time, the house had become more than just a place to live. It was his safe space, filled with memories of family gatherings, quiet mornings with coffee, and evenings spent reading books by the fireplace. Tom loved every corner of the house, from the creaky wooden stairs to the little garden outside. One chilly morning, Tom decided to clean the basement. The winter had left a thin layer of frost on the windows, and the sunlight barely reached the far corners of the basement. He carried a broom, a dustpan, and a small flashlight. As he swept the floor near the far wall, something unusual caught his eye. A long, jagged crack ran across the concrete floor. It started near the wall and stretched toward the middle of the basement. At first, Tom thought it might be a simple problem caused by cold weather or normal settling of the house. But as he looked closer, the crack seemed deeper than he expected. The edges were uneven, and small stones had fallen inside. It was unlike any crack he had seen before. Tom knelt down and put his hand near the crack. It was cold, and the darkness inside seemed almost endless. He shined his flashlight carefully along the line, trying to see if it was just a surface crack. Then, something strange appeared at the bottom. The light revealed the outline of a narrow opening, as if the floor itself had a hidden door beneath it. Tom's heart began to beat faster. He stood up and took a few steps back. This was not ordinary. He had lived in the house for over 10 years, and he had never noticed anything like this. The idea that there might be a hidden space beneath his basement made him nervous, but also curious. He had always been interested in mysteries, reading books about secret tunnels, hidden rooms, and lost treasures. Now, it seemed that he might have discovered one of his own. Tom decided to call his friend Sarah. She was a young woman who loved exploring and solving mysteries. Whenever Tom found something unusual, Sarah was the first person he thought of. She had an adventurous spirit and a sharp mind. He picked up the phone and explained what he had seen. Sarah's voice was full of excitement when she responded. "Tom, you have to show me this. It sounds amazing. Don't touch anything until I arrive. We need to be careful." Within an hour, Sarah was at Tom's house. She wore sturdy shoes, gloves, and carried a small backpack with tools and flashlights. The two friends went down to the basement together. Tom pointed to the crack. Sarah crouched and looked closely. "This is more than just a crack. It looks like it leads somewhere," she said. She carefully pushed aside a small pile of dust and dirt near the edge. Underneath, she noticed a wooden surface covered in debris. "I think there is a trapdoor here," she whispered. Tom took a deep breath. He had never imagined that a simple crack could hide a door. Together, they cleared the area, brushing away dirt and small stones. The wood was old, dark, and slightly worn, but it seemed strong. "Ready?" Sarah asked, looking at Tom. He nodded, though he felt a mix of fear and excitement. Tom placed his hands on the edges of the wooden door and lifted carefully. The door creaked loudly, making both of them jump. Dust rose into the air, making it difficult to see. Tom shined his flashlight down, revealing a narrow stairway leading into darkness. The air coming from below was cool and smelled faintly of earth. The steps were made of stone, worn smooth by time. They looked old but sturdy. Tom and Sarah exchanged nervous glances. This was not just a small storage space. Someone had built this stairway intentionally. "Should we go down?" Tom asked softly. Sarah nodded. "Yes, but slowly. We don't know what's down there." Step by step, they descended into the underground space. The walls were made of stone, and the air felt different from the basement above. It was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the sound of their footsteps echoing softly. When they reached the bottom, they found themselves in a small room. The room was dimly lit by a few narrow cracks in the stone ceiling that let in tiny shafts of light. In the center of the room was a wooden chest, covered in dust. Around it, the floor was scattered with old tools, small boxes, and pieces of wood. The walls had strange markings etched into the stone. They were not familiar letters or numbers, but patterns that seemed purposeful. Tom approached the chest and brushed away the dust. The wood was old, but the carvings on it were intricate. Sarah shined her flashlight inside the chest. Inside, they saw old papers, maps, and small metal boxes. The papers looked fragile and yellowed with age. The maps seemed to show underground tunnels beneath the town. "This is incredible," Sarah said quietly. "It looks like someone used this room a long time ago. They might have been hiding something or keeping a secret." Tom nodded. He felt a mix of wonder and nervousness. How had he never noticed this hidden room before? It was as if the house had been keeping a secret for decades. They spent hours exploring the room carefully. Every item seemed important. The tools were simple but unusual, the papers were filled with writing and symbols, and the maps suggested a network of tunnels beyond the house. Tom realized that his basement was not just part of a home. It was a doorway into something much larger, something that connected to the history of the town itself. As the evening light faded, Tom and Sarah decided to leave the room and close the trapdoor. They agreed to return the next day with more equipment and notebooks to record their findings. The crack in the basement floor had revealed a mystery, one that would change their quiet lives forever. As they climbed back upstairs, Tom looked around his basement. It seemed ordinary again, but he knew better now. Beneath the floor, a hidden world waited, full of secrets and stories that had been forgotten over time. And he was determined to uncover every single one. The discovery of the crack was just the beginning. Tom felt a sense of excitement he had never experienced before. This was the start of an adventure, one that would take him and Sarah into the unknown depths beneath their town. They could not yet imagine what they would find, but one thing was certain: life in Tom's house would never be the same again. The next morning, Tom woke up early, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. He could not stop thinking about the hidden room beneath his basement. Every time he imagined the narrow stairway and the chest filled with papers and maps, his heart raced. Today, he had a plan. He would return to the hidden room with Sarah and explore more carefully. He prepared a small backpack. He packed gloves, flashlights, a notebook, pens, and a camera. He wanted to document everything they found. He also brought a small hammer and a tape measure, thinking that they might need to examine the walls or mark the paths of the underground space. Sarah arrived at Tom's house soon after. She was carrying her own backpack, which included a small first aid kit, extra batteries, and a magnifying glass. She greeted Tom with a wide smile. "Are you ready for today's adventure?" she asked. Tom nodded. "I think so. We need to be careful, but I cannot wait to see more of this place." They went down to the basement together. The trapdoor was still in the same position as the day before. Tom carefully lifted it, and dust rose into the air again. He shined the flashlight down the narrow stairway. The shadows seemed deeper today, and the air smelled damp and earthy. Step by step they descended. Tom held the flashlight steadily, while Sarah moved slightly behind him. The room at the bottom looked exactly as they had left it. The chest was still in the center, covered with dust. The walls were lined with old tools and boxes. The strange patterns on the stone walls caught their attention again. They were not ordinary scratches. Some symbols looked like letters from an ancient alphabet, while others were geometric shapes arranged in careful order. Tom opened the chest again. This time, he took out the papers and maps carefully. Each map was drawn by hand and showed tunnels beneath the town. Some tunnels were wide enough for a person to walk through, while others seemed narrower, almost like hidden passages. "These tunnels might connect to other houses," Sarah said as she studied one of the maps. "Look at these marks. They seem to point to places in the town we know." Tom leaned closer. Could it be that people used these tunnels long ago? Maybe they were hiding from something, or maybe it was a secret network for trading or storing items. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "It is possible. Look at this one map. It shows a larger chamber beneath the town. The symbol here is the same as the markings on the walls. It must be important. Tom took out his notebook and began to copy the map. He wanted to understand the paths and the connections between the tunnels. Sarah examined the metal boxes in the chest. Some were small and locked, while others had simple latches. They opened a few carefully, finding old coins, tools, and pieces of jewelry. Each item seemed old, but none of them looked dangerous. "This is amazing," Tom said. "It is like stepping into history. Nobody has seen this in decades, maybe even a century." Sarah smiled. "Yes, and we are the first people to see it since then. But we need to be careful. If these tunnels are old, parts of them could be unsafe." They spent hours examining the room. Tom measured the dimensions of the space, and Sarah wrote notes about the markings on the walls. They discovered a small corner in the room that looked different from the rest. The stone there was smoother, and there was a faint outline of another doorway. "Do you think there is another room?" Tom whispered. Sarah nodded slowly. "It is possible. The markings here suggest it might be hidden. Maybe it leads to a tunnel." Tom and Sarah decided to investigate. They pushed aside some stones near the smooth wall and tapped gently with a hammer. The sound echoed differently, as if there was an empty space behind the wall. Carefully, they removed a few stones and found a narrow opening, just wide enough for a person to slip through. Tom held the flashlight while Sarah went first. She crawled slowly through the opening, and Tom followed. They entered a narrow tunnel that extended into darkness. The walls were made of stone, and the ceiling was low. It was dusty, and the air was cool. "This tunnel must be very old," Sarah said quietly. "It feels like it has not been used in a long time." They continued forward, shining the flashlights along the walls. The tunnel twisted and turned, and small side passages appeared along the way. Tom noticed marks on the stone floor that seemed like footprints. "Someone walked here a long time ago," he said. "But who?" Sarah shook her head. "We may never know. But it is exciting to explore. We should keep track of the paths so we can find our way back." After walking for several minutes, they reached a larger space. The tunnel opened into a small chamber. The chamber was empty except for a stone table in the center and more markings on the walls. Some of the symbols looked like they were part of a code or a message. Tom took out his notebook and started copying the symbols. Sarah examined the walls carefully. She noticed that some stones were loose. "These might be hiding something," she said. Together, they moved the stones and found a small cavity. Inside was another chest, smaller than the one in the hidden room, but filled with more old papers and a few metal objects. "This is incredible," Tom whispered. "It is like each space we find has its own secret." Sarah carefully examined the papers. Some were letters, and others were drawings. They described tunnels, hidden chambers, and instructions for keeping the tunnels safe. Tom realized that the tunnels were not random. Someone had designed them carefully. "This must have been a secret network," Tom said. "People built it to hide things or to protect themselves. We are the first to see it in many years." They decided to rest for a moment in the chamber. They sat on the stone floor and ate a small snack. While they rested, Tom thought about the people who had created the tunnels. Who were they, and why had they hidden their work beneath the town? The questions made him feel both curious and respectful. After a short break, they continued exploring. The tunnels seemed to extend further than they could see. Some passages led to dead ends, while others continued into darkness. Tom and Sarah marked each path on the maps they had copied from the chest. They wanted to understand the layout completely. Hours passed, and the excitement grew. Every new passage and chamber revealed a piece of history. They discovered old tools, faded papers, and even small objects that might have been used in daily life. The tunnels were not just for hiding. They were a small underground community, carefully planned and maintained. As evening approached, Tom and Sarah decided it was time to return to the basement. They retraced their steps carefully, making sure to leave everything in place. They climbed back through the narrow opening and into the hidden room. The chest in the center remained untouched, waiting for future exploration. Back in the basement, Tom closed the trapdoor. The crack that had started everything now felt like a doorway to a hidden world. Tom and Sarah looked at each other, smiling. They had discovered something extraordinary. "This is only the beginning," Sarah said. "There is so much more to explore. We have to come back." Tom nodded. He felt a sense of purpose. The house was no longer just a home. It was the entrance to a mystery that stretched far beneath the town. The crack in the basement had opened a door to a secret world, and they were ready to uncover its story. Step by step. The next morning, Tom woke up with a feeling of excitement. His mind was filled with thoughts about the hidden tunnels and the mysterious chambers they had discovered the day before. He had hardly slept, thinking about the papers, maps, and objects they had found. He knew there was much more to uncover. Sarah arrived at his house shortly after sunrise. She was carrying a new flashlight, extra batteries, and a small bag of snacks for their exploration. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, and she smiled at Tom. "I have been thinking about the tunnels all night. We need to explore further today." Tom nodded. "Yes. Yesterday was just the beginning. I want to understand who built this place and why." They went down to the basement together. The trapdoor creaked as Tom lifted it. The stairway into the hidden room looked dark and mysterious, but neither of them hesitated. Step by step, they descended into the underground space. The air was cool, carrying a faint, earthy smell. It was quiet, except for the soft sound of their footsteps echoing against the stone walls. When they reached the hidden room, they noticed the chest in the center was still untouched. The papers, maps, and boxes were exactly as they had left them. Tom carefully opened the chest again, while Sarah examined the walls. She noticed new symbols on the far wall that they had not seen before. They were more detailed, almost like a story told in shapes. "This is amazing," Sarah said. "It seems like the walls are trying to tell us something. Maybe these symbols are instructions or a message." Tom examined the maps inside the chest. One of them had several tunnels branching out in different directions, and one path led to a larger chamber marked with a special symbol. This was the chamber they had seen hints of yesterday. The symbol on the map matched the patterns on the wall in the hidden room. Tom realized that the tunnels were connected, forming a network beneath the town. "We need to follow the path to the larger chamber," Tom said. "I want to see what is inside." Sarah nodded. "We should be careful. We do not know how stable the tunnels are or what we might find." They prepared their backpacks with flashlights, ropes, and notebooks. Tom also brought a small measuring tape, thinking it might help them understand the size of the passages. Together, they carefully opened the small opening that led into the narrow tunnel. The tunnel was dark, low, and dusty. They had to bend slightly to move through it. The walls were cold and smooth, and the floor was uneven. As they walked, Sarah noticed small scratches on the stones. "These might be marks left by the people who built the tunnels," she said. "They show the way or maybe indicate something important." Tom shone his flashlight along the walls. "It is amazing how much care went into building this place. The stones fit perfectly, and the tunnels are strong even after so many years." After walking for some time, they reached a small chamber. The ceiling was higher here, and the space felt different. There were old wooden supports holding the walls, and the floor had small scattered objects. Some of them looked like tools, and others were containers made of metal and wood. In the center of the chamber, they found a stone table. On it were several old papers, neatly stacked, as if someone had been studying or working there long ago. Tom carefully picked up the papers. They were letters and diagrams describing the tunnels and their connections. Some mentioned secret rooms and hidden entrances in the town. "This is incredible," Tom whispered. "We are seeing history that was hidden for generations." Sarah examined the walls and noticed another doorway partially covered with stones. "There might be another room beyond this chamber," she said. "We should check it carefully." Together, they moved the stones and revealed a narrow passage. It was just wide enough for them to crawl through. The passage extended into darkness, but Tom and Sarah were determined. Step by step, they moved forward. The air grew cooler and damper as they went deeper. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading them further underground. Finally, they entered a hidden chamber larger than any space they had seen before. The walls were lined with shelves carved into the stone. On the shelves were small wooden boxes, scrolls, and old tools. The room felt like a workshop or a study. It was clear that someone had spent a lot of time here. In the center of the chamber was a large chest. It was covered with carvings similar to the ones in the first hidden room, but more detailed and intricate. Tom and Sarah approached it carefully. The chest was locked with an old metal latch. Sarah examined it and found a small keyhole. "I wonder if one of the smaller boxes or chests we found yesterday has the key," she said. Tom opened some of the smaller boxes and examined their contents. After a few minutes, he found a tiny key hidden in a small wooden box. The key was old but fit perfectly into the latch of the large chest. With a deep breath, Tom turned the key. The latch clicked, and the lid opened slowly. Inside, they found more papers, old maps, and several objects wrapped in cloth. The papers described tunnels, hidden chambers, and instructions for keeping the space safe. The objects included tools, small jewelry, coins, and a few items that seemed to belong to daily life. "This is amazing," Sarah said quietly. "It looks like the people who built these tunnels wanted to preserve their work and protect it." Tom picked up one of the papers and read aloud. It mentioned secret networks beneath the town and warned about leaving the tunnels unexplored. The writing was careful and detailed. It described how the tunnels connected to other houses and hidden rooms. Tom realized that this was more than just a basement secret. It was part of the town's history. They carefully examined the objects in the chest. Some were simple tools, while others were decorative. They looked at the small coins and jewelry, imagining the people who had used them long ago. The chamber felt alive with history. It was as if the walls were holding the stories of those who had lived and worked there. Sarah noticed a small passage at the far end of the chamber. "There might be more tunnels," she said. "We should follow it, but carefully." Tom agreed. They followed the passage, which was narrower and darker than the others. It twisted and turned, and the floor was uneven. At one point, they had to crawl through a small opening. The air was colder here, and the silence was complete except for their soft footsteps. Finally, the passage opened into another room. This one was smaller but filled with objects stacked neatly on shelves. There were old books, small tools, and more papers. Tom realized that this entire underground network had been used as a secret place for storing knowledge and important items. "This is incredible," Tom said. "It is like a hidden world beneath our feet. Nobody knows about this except us." Sarah smiled. "And we have to be careful. We need to document everything, but we should also respect the space and its history." As they explored the hidden chamber, Tom and Sarah felt a sense of wonder and responsibility. They knew that the tunnels and rooms were special. They were not just exploring a secret basement, they were discovering the past, step by step. Every symbol, every map, and every object told a story. By the end of the day, Tom and Sarah returned to the basement and carefully closed the trapdoor. The hidden chambers were still there, waiting for their next visit. They had uncovered an incredible part of history, and they knew that there were more secrets to find. Tom looked at the basement floor, where the crack had started everything. It was just a line in the concrete, but it had led them into a hidden world. He realized that life in his house had changed forever. The hidden tunnels were more than a mystery. They were a bridge to the past, full of stories, secrets, and history waiting to be explored. As they left the basement, Tom felt a mixture of excitement and anticipation. Tomorrow, they would return to uncover more of the tunnels and learn more about the people who had built this secret world. The adventure had only just begun, and the hidden chambers beneath the town were ready to reveal their secrets one by one. The morning sun shone through Tom's window as he prepared for another visit to the hidden chambers beneath his house. The memory of the previous explorations filled his mind. Every step into the tunnels and chambers had been exciting and mysterious. He felt a sense of responsibility to uncover more of the hidden world beneath the town, and today, he was determined to go deeper. Sarah arrived soon after, carrying a backpack filled with supplies. She had a notebook, extra flashlights, a small camera, and gloves. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, and she greeted Tom warmly. "Are you ready for more discoveries?" she asked. Tom nodded. "Yes. Yesterday we found so many objects and maps. I think today we can explore areas we haven't reached yet." They carefully went down the basement stairs. Tom lifted the trapdoor and shone his flashlight down the narrow stairway. The darkness of the hidden room awaited them. The air smelled damp but familiar. Step by step, they descended, their footsteps echoing against the stone walls. When they reached the hidden room, the chest was still in the center, covered in dust. Tom opened it carefully, while Sarah examined the walls. The symbols seemed even more interesting today. Some appeared like instructions, while others looked like a map drawn in shapes and lines. "We need to follow the tunnels to the larger chambers," Tom said. "The maps show paths we have not explored yet." Sarah nodded. "We should mark each path and document everything carefully. That way we will not get lost, and we can understand how the tunnels connect." They packed some of the papers, maps, and a few small objects into their backpacks. Then they opened the narrow passage that led into the tunnels. The air inside was cooler, and the silence was complete except for their careful footsteps. The tunnels twisted and turned, each step revealing new details in the walls and floor. After walking for some time, they reached a chamber they had not seen before. This chamber was larger, with high stone walls and a ceiling supported by wooden beams. In the center was a stone table covered with papers, maps, and several small objects. Sarah examined the walls and noticed a small alcove. Inside the alcove was a wooden box, different from the other chests they had found. It was small, but the carvings on it were detailed and intricate. Tom carefully opened the box. Inside, they found old letters, a few coins, and a small key. "This key might open something important," Sarah said. She held it up to the light. "It looks like it belongs to a larger chest or door." Tom examined the chamber. He noticed another doorway hidden behind a stack of stones. The door was small and heavy, with a metal latch. He tried the key in the latch, and it fit perfectly. The lock clicked, and the door slowly opened. Behind the door was a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. The air was colder here, and a faint smell of earth mixed with old wood. Tom shone his flashlight down the steps. "This looks like it leads to another hidden chamber," he said. Sarah followed closely. "We must be careful. The steps might be old and unstable." Step by step they descended. The staircase led them to a large underground chamber unlike any they had seen before. The walls were made of smooth stone, and the floor was covered with dust. In the center of the room was a large wooden chest. Its surface was carved with symbols and shapes similar to the ones they had seen throughout the tunnels. Tom and Sarah approached the chest carefully. It was heavy and looked old, but the latch was intact. Tom used the small key they had found to unlock it. The chest opened slowly, revealing its contents. Inside were several old scrolls, papers, maps, and small objects wrapped in cloth. Sarah carefully unwrapped one of the objects. It was a small, beautifully crafted compass. The metal was tarnished, but the markings were clear. Tom examined one of the scrolls. It contained detailed diagrams of tunnels, hidden rooms, and secret passages throughout the town. The writing described a hidden network designed to protect people and valuable items during times of danger. "This is amazing," Tom whispered. "It is like stepping into history." These people wanted to preserve their work and protect it from anyone who might misuse it. Sarah nodded. "Yes." And they left clues for others to find. The maps, the symbols, and the objects all show a careful plan. They trusted that someone would eventually discover this hidden world. As they explored the chamber, Tom noticed a small stone door in the corner. It was almost invisible, blending with the walls. He pushed against it, and to his surprise, it moved slightly. Behind the door was a narrow tunnel, barely wide enough for a person to pass through. "This tunnel might lead to something important," Sarah said. "It is hidden, but it looks intentional." They crawled through the narrow tunnel. It twisted and turned, and the air became cooler and damper. At the end of the tunnel, they found a smaller chamber. The room was simple but held something remarkable, a small collection of items carefully arranged on a stone shelf. There were objects of daily life, coins, tools, and a few letters. Tom picked up one of the letters and read aloud. It described a family who had used the tunnels to hide their belongings during difficult times. They had kept the tunnels a secret to protect themselves and others. The letter ended with a note about preserving the tunnels for future generations. Sarah looked around the room in awe. "This is incredible. We are seeing the lives of people who lived here long ago. They trusted the tunnels to keep them safe, and now we are the ones who discovered it." Tom nodded. "It feels like we are part of their story. Every step we take, every object we see, tells us more about the past." They spent hours carefully examining the chamber. Tom measured the walls and floor, while Sarah documented the objects and symbols in her notebook. They discovered small details that suggested the tunnels were part of a larger network, connecting several houses and hidden spaces throughout the town. By late afternoon, they decided to return to the basement. They carefully retraced their steps, ensuring that everything remained in place. The hidden chambers were still there, waiting for their next visit. The key, the maps, and the objects were carefully stored in their backpacks for documentation. Back in the basement, Tom closed the trapdoor. The crack in the floor, which had seemed so simple at first, now felt like a doorway to a hidden world full of history and secrets. Tom and Sarah looked at each other with excitement and wonder. They had discovered something extraordinary, and they knew that there was still more to uncover. "This is only the beginning," Tom said. "We have learned so much, but there are still tunnels and chambers we have not explored. I feel like the hidden world beneath the town has many more stories to tell." Sarah smiled. "And we will discover them. Step by step, we will learn the secrets of the tunnels and the people who built them. This adventure is far from over." As they left the basement, Tom felt a sense of connection to the past. The tunnels and hidden chambers were not just empty spaces. They were a bridge to the lives, struggles, and careful planning of people who had lived long ago. Tom realized that the crack in his basement had led him to a remarkable discovery, one that would change the way he saw his home and his town forever. The hidden chambers held secrets, treasures, and stories that had been forgotten. Tom and Sarah had found the first pieces, but the deeper mysteries still awaited them. They knew that with each visit, they would uncover more about the hidden world beneath the house and the town. The adventure was just beginning, and the excitement of discovery made their hearts beat faster. Tom woke up with a sense of excitement he had never felt before. The hidden chambers beneath his basement had revealed so much already, but he had a feeling that today would be different. Today, he and Sarah might uncover the deepest secret of all. He packed his backpack with supplies, including flashlights, notebooks, gloves, and extra batteries. Every item was ready for a careful exploration of the underground world. Sarah arrived at Tom's house with her usual bright energy. She carried her own set of tools and notebooks, eager to continue their adventure. "I have been thinking about the tunnels all night," she said. "There must be more to discover. Something bigger is waiting for us." Tom nodded. "I feel the same way. The hidden chambers are incredible, but I think the key we found yesterday might lead to something extraordinary." They went down the basement stairs together. The trapdoor creaked slightly as Tom lifted it. The stairway into the hidden room looked dark and mysterious, but neither of them hesitated. Step by step, they descended into the underground space, the air cool and still around them. When they reached the hidden room, The chest in the center was waiting, as if it had been expecting them. Tom opened it carefully, while Sarah examined the walls and symbols. The papers and maps were still intact. Tom picked up one of the maps and noticed a path that had not been explored fully. The line led to a large chamber marked with an unusual symbol that they had not seen before. "This is it," Tom whispered. "I think this chamber holds the biggest secret." Sarah nodded. "We need to be very careful. We do not know what we will find." They packed the maps, a few papers, and some small objects into their backpacks and opened the narrow passage that led into the tunnels. The air grew cooler as they moved forward, and the walls seemed to close in slightly, making the tunnel feel tighter. They walked slowly, carefully examining every step. The floor was uneven, and the stones in the walls were old but strong. After some time, they reached a junction in the tunnel. One path led to a small chamber they had explored before, while the other extended into darkness. Tom shined his flashlight along the new path. It twisted and turned, leading further underground. "This is the way," Tom said. "It matches the map exactly." Sarah followed closely. "I wonder what is waiting for us." The tunnel became narrower, and at some points, they had to crouch low to pass through. Finally, the tunnel opened into a large chamber unlike any they had seen before. The ceiling was high, supported by thick wooden beams, and the walls were made of smooth stone. In the center of the chamber was a massive wooden chest, much larger than any they had discovered earlier. Tom and Sarah approached the chest carefully. The surface was carved with symbols and shapes similar to those in the other rooms, but more intricate and detailed. Tom noticed a small keyhole in the center of the latch. He remembered the tiny key they had found the day before. Holding his breath, he inserted the key into the latch. It fit perfectly. With a slow turn, the latch clicked, and the chest opened. Inside, they found dozens of objects carefully wrapped in cloth. There were old scrolls, papers, maps, tools, coins, and jewelry. But what surprised them most was the center of the chest, a small, sealed wooden box. It looked important and ancient. "This must be the main secret," Sarah whispered. "Everything else seems to lead to this box." Tom carefully unwrapped the box. It was locked with a tiny metal latch. Using the same key, he opened it. Inside, they found a collection of documents and objects that were unlike anything they had seen. The documents described a hidden society that had lived beneath the town long ago. They had built the tunnels and chambers to protect their knowledge, valuables, and important items during times of danger. The papers included detailed instructions for keeping the tunnels secret and safe. There were also personal letters describing the lives of the people who had lived there. One letter, written by a man named Elias, explained the reason for the underground network. Elias wrote that the tunnels were created to protect the town from threats and to preserve important knowledge for future generations. Tom read the letter aloud. "We trusted that one day someone would discover these tunnels and continue the work of keeping the secret safe," he said. Sarah examined the objects in the box. There were small tools, a compass, coins, and a few pieces of jewelry. Each item seemed ordinary, but together they told a story of careful planning and protection. Tom realized that the people who had built these tunnels were thoughtful and intelligent. They had created a hidden world to keep their community safe. As they explored the chamber further, Sarah noticed a small passage at the far end of the room. It was narrow and partially hidden by stones. "This might lead to another secret area," she said. Tom nodded. "We have to see where it goes." They crawled through the narrow passage. It twisted and turned, leading deeper underground. The air grew cooler and damp. Finally, the passage opened into a hidden space that took their breath away. The room was large, with a stone floor and walls covered with shelves. On the shelves were dozens of carefully wrapped objects, old books, scrolls, tools, coins, and even small containers with unknown contents. In the center of the room was a pedestal with a small wooden box. It looked special, as if it had been placed there for centuries. Tom approached it carefully and opened the lid. Inside was a glowing crystal. The crystal emitted a soft light that illuminated the chamber. Its glow was gentle but bright enough to see the details of the room clearly. Tom and Sarah stared at the crystal in amazement. "It is beautiful," Sarah said. "I have never seen anything like it." Tom realized that this crystal was the most important discovery of all. It was not just a treasure or an object of beauty. It represented the heart of the hidden world beneath the town. The people who had built the tunnels had created something precious, something they wanted to protect for generations. "This is what the tunnels were meant to guard," Tom whispered. "The crystal, the documents, and the objects are all part of a story that was hidden for centuries." Sarah nodded. "We have to make sure it stays safe. This is history, and it belongs to everyone, not just us." They carefully documented the chamber and the objects. Tom measured the room and wrote notes about the placement of the shelves and the pedestal. Sarah photographed the crystal and the objects, making sure to capture every detail. They wanted to preserve the story and share it responsibly with experts. By the time they returned to the basement, Tom and Sarah were exhausted but exhilarated. The hidden chambers had revealed a secret world beneath their town, one that had been protected for generations. They realized that their lives had changed forever. Their quiet home was now the entrance to an incredible mystery, a bridge between the past and the present. Tom closed the trapdoor and looked at the basement floor, where the crack had first appeared. It was just a line in the concrete, but it had led them to a world filled with history, secrets, and treasures. He smiled, feeling proud and amazed. Sarah turned to him. "We have discovered something incredible, Tom. The tunnels, the chambers, and the crystal are more than just secrets. They are a story of people who wanted to protect their town and preserve their knowledge. We are lucky to witness it." Tom nodded. "And now, we have a responsibility. We will document everything and share it with experts, so the history of the tunnels is preserved. But we will also protect the hidden chambers, just as the people who built them wanted." As they left the basement, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the town. Tom felt a deep connection to the hidden world beneath his home. The crack in the basement had led him and Sarah to a discovery that shocked everyone who learned about it. The tunnels, chambers, objects, and crystal were a reminder of the past, a hidden treasure that would now be remembered for generations. The adventure was complete, but the story of the hidden world beneath the town would live on, carefully preserved by those who understood its importance. Tom and Sarah knew that they had been part of something extraordinary, and the secret beneath the house would continue to inspire curiosity, wonder, and respect for the people who had created it. The crack in the basement had started it all, but the discoveries they made had changed their lives forever. The hidden chambers beneath the house were no longer just a mystery. They were history, a story of protection, ingenuity, and the remarkable secrets that lay beneath their feet.